What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Dad's Rad Fords. Got a Ford on the lift. Is it mine? Nope, ain't mine. Not my tow haul. Not my tow rig, is what I meant. This is Robbie's truck. If you've seen any of my videos, you've heard me talk about Robbie's Edsel. Well, this is Robbie's F-150. He decided he liked my 97 so much he just had to have one for himself. Not really, but ran up on the truck, smoking deal. He was looking for just a daily commuter truck. Perfect truck, 4.6 valve, standard cab, 8.8 diff. His biggest complaint is it feels gutless. Well, the truck came factory with a 308 gear and an open diff. Today, we're gonna fix that. We're gonna go with a 373 and a locker, and he's got a couple front end parts we need to install in this thing also. I don't know that I'm gonna get to that in this video. Kind of pressed for time. I always look around. Shop is a freaking mess. There's work everywhere. I'm backed up over my head with freaking work. We're gonna get this squeezed in, get a good video out for you guys. And yeah, give me just a second. We'll get you off the stand, open some boxes, start taking this dang junk apart. All right, so you see we got our bearing kit, install kit, if you wanna call it. Got us a factory style track lock, Ford Performance part, 8.8, 373 ring and pinion. So yeah, let's get up under this thing. First things first, obviously I've already got it in the air, got the drums off each side. We'll get the cover popped off of here, get the drive shaft out, carrier pops out, pinion out. We just start transferring bearings and races and go from there. So I'm gonna put you on the stand. You're probably gonna get a little bit of time-lapse footage tearing this thing down because it's not, I'll give you a couple step by step, but pretty simple tearing this down. All right, everybody, we got our diff cover off. Shaft is out. That's a pretty self-explanatory thing. The next thing we got to do, roll this thing around here, and you see that, where's my finger? Right there, that 8mm. We take this bolt out, then we can slide the pin out, then we can get the C-clips out of the axles, and yes, once you take the pin out, the center pin, you can slide your axles inward like this and get these C-clips out of here. Then you can slide your axles out, pop your carrier out, pop your pinion out, pull our center pin out. Sorry for any glare. Sometimes when I have the blinds open in here, these the windows make a glare. Simple task there. Sometimes this gets real ugly when this pin breaks off inside there, or not the pin, but the bolt. That can definitely happen. Seen that happen a lot. And you get your drill bits out and the air hammer and it gets real freaking ugly. But anyways, well, with any luck, this one did not break. I'm always take my screwdriver, just put it behind the ring gear bolt over here so you're not fighting it. You can also leave the drive shaft in, leave the transmission in park and do it that way, but this is how I've always done it. Same way with going back together. So yeah, get our 308 and open carrier out of here. Sorry for my phone going off in the background. So yeah, there, slide this out. Now we can get our center pin out. Just set that stuff right in there. Reach out here. Here, let me rotate it around some so I can show you guys. Oh, there goes the spider gears coming out. There we go. Now you can just push the axle in like that. Magnet or whatever you so desire. There's your C-clip. Now that axle can slide out. Slide that one in. Get our magnet. This one don't want to come out for some reason. There we go. Other C-clip. Slide this out. Now on these open diffs, you've seen me just roll those spider gears, so you got to be careful. Not that it really matters, but we're gonna just loosely put this back together. Now we can pop these off the carrier. Make sure you do not get these mixed up. They do go a certain way. Don't get them upside down, don't swap them side to side. I take them off, lay them right in my drain bucket. All right. Now, depending on how much preload these bearings have on it, the carrier can be extremely tight in the diff. Always just leave a couple of bolts started like that. The cap is loose over here. Roll this around. to where you can get your pry bar under it, and that one was not bad at all. So, not a big deal there. Sometimes it takes a lot of force to pop them out if the bearings have a lot of preload on them, whoever set it up, Ford or whoever. So, now, just like that, also, the shims on each side of this, don't mix those up. We're probably gonna have to move them around because we're replacing everything, but it's nice to know exactly where they were, where they started, so you can have a starting point on setting up your new diff. Now, since we're not rebuilding this carrier, we're replacing the carrier and the gear, only thing we need is the ring gear bolts, so these bearings, all this stuff is just gonna stay. And now we can pull our pinion out. Got our nut and flange off of the front side. Obviously goes on like this, got that off. Sometimes you need to use a puller, bolt it to here, push the pinion through, not a big deal. So now, got our big 308 gear off of here. I'm going to press this bearing off and transfer the shim to the new pinion stack just so I have a starting point, because we know this shim is right for this housing. So we're mainly, when you're shimming a diff, you're mainly shimming it to the housing. There's probably a lot of controversy on that. If you're changing just the ring and pinion set, your pinion depth should not change a whole lot. If it does, then you can just press it apart and put it back together. But my point in saying all of this is, when you're shimming all of this stuff up, you're mainly shimming everything to the housing. I say that because when you're using the setup tools on these to set everything up, your bar that goes in here, the pinion piece, as you slide the shims in, the ring and pinion gear is nowhere in sight. When you're setting all that stuff up, shimming all that with the setup tools, you've essentially not even took the ring and pinion out of the box yet. So we're not necessarily, and this is my professional opinion, we're not shimming to the gear, so to speak. You're mainly shimming for the diff, the actual housing itself, the tolerances that are made in here in these bearing race cups, and the bearings and races themselves, because we are changing bearings and races, and you will, when you're using the setup tools, you will use all of that stuff for the bearings and stuff on the tool, but not the actual gear set. So that's just a little bit of theory for you guys. When you're shimming one up, you're mainly shimming your tolerances of the machining of the housing, and if there's any variances in the machining of the bearing. Not necessarily your gear set or whatnot. Obviously we're gonna move it, we'll have to move it side to side to get our backlash right, and possibly the pinion in and out of the housing to get our pattern correctly. But I just thought I'd go on about that. So that's why I'm going to take this bearing off. And you may be wondering, like, why the heck are you even gonna mess with that bearing? You're doing all new bearings, new ring gear and everything, ring and pinion gear. Well, I wanna get this shim out from under here so I know where I'm starting, because I can most likely just put this shim on the new pinion and only do some adjustments out here. Most likely our pinion depth and everything will be good. We'll probably just have to move our carrier right to left with these two side shims that I told you guys to not mix up earlier. So I'm going to continue on getting the front bearing out. I'll drive these two races out. I use an air hammer and a long chisel to drive these races out. Otherwise you're gonna be freaking waylaying on it forever. To get the front bearing out, stupid easy. Just take a pry bar, whatever, pop your pinion seal out. That's it right there. This one, the oil slinger that goes in front of this bearing, you don't, let me move you guys. It's better. So this bearing goes in there, oil slinger they call it, and then your seal. I'm just gonna pop the seal out, no big deal. If you mess it up, we're not reusing it. And then this is your outer bearing, that's your oil slinger. Let's wipe this off, give it a wipe down, set it aside, because we will be reusing this. This is not a serviceable part where there's nothing wrong with it, we're reusing. So now, I'm gonna show you how I walk these races out. Okay, so you probably can't see it on camera, but let me get a flashlight. There's two little, barely in the housing in each corner, trying to get the light in there good. Anyways, a couple of reliefs, one on each side, back there. Can you see that little relief on the end of the furthermost circle? There's a little relief back there on the back side of that race. And there's one right there also. Right in there, and then right over there, there's a little relief where you can get to the meaty part of the thing, of the bearing race, the thing I said. So, what I like to do, take my air chisel, Get them those little reliefs. Each side. There's one. Same on the back side. Makes quick work of that. You're not beating and banging with punches and chisels and all that kind of stuff. So now we're pretty much, except for our axle bearings and seals, which that's just popping the bearing out, popping the seal out, putting it right back in. There's really not much to that. We're basically torn down now. Got all of our parts out. Everything that we're gonna need is out. We're fully torn down. Housing is empty, like I said, minus the axles and axle bearings and seals. We'll do that last because that's just no-brainer stuff. Pull those out, pop the new stuff in. I'll show you the tool I use for that. But as for now, I'm gonna go ahead and start swapping, getting this pinion bearing pressed off of here. Get the pinion bearing pressed off. I'll probably go ahead and, actually not probably, once I get this pressed off, transfer our shim to the new set, press the bearing on, slide our new crush sleeve on, then the next thing I do is press these two bearings, the bearing races, back in the housing. We'll clean all this out really good, put our two new races in here, then we're ready to install the pinion and torque it down and get our rotational drag set how we like it. Yeah, so give me just a minute. Let me do some pressing over here on the press, get this bearing off, and I'll show you what we got going on from there. Got us all set up in the press. As you can see, you're gonna need one of these bearing splitters. There's a couple different styles. I keep a couple of different ones around here, but they just kind of spread apart, clamp around your underside of the bearing so you can grab it by the race, and then you're just going to press the bearing through the pinion, and just like that. Now, we got our bearing off. Let's press our bearing apart. Now this is where I'm talking about our shim is. Right under that bearing. Goes all the way down on the bottom of your pinion. Generally there's only one, sometimes in extreme applications if you don't have the right stack up. You can use two to achieve the thickness you need, but I'm going to take this one off of here, transfer it to our new pinion, press the bearing on it, slide the crush collar on, and then we can put our races in the housing. Ready to press our bearing on. We've got our bearing and race. And pro tip, if you start your bearing, slide the race over the top of it, and then the same bearing splitter tool you use to get it off, you can land it right on the, I'm not sure how good that's picking up, but you can land it right on the bearing race itself. Push it down nice and easy. Press set back up here. Got our shim. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see how it looks in the camera. Yeah, there's our shim under the bearing. So what I do, turn your bearing splitter kind of upside down, and then you're going to take the whole pinion, turn it upside down, so you can just lay the race in there like that. It's not going to interfere with anything. Now, all right, there, it's pressed all the way down. After it bottoms out, give it a couple of, so it's really pressed on there, good and snug, no variations. And now, basically, your pinion is basically ready to go in the housing. Just got to press these races, knock these races back in the housing, slide our crush sleeve on, we can stuff this in, and then see where we're sitting on our pinion shim. So now we will put in our pinion race. Race goes in here just like this and accepts the bearing. I've already got the backside one in. To install these, you just need to get yourself a basic bearing installer tool. Obviously mine is very well used. I build a lot of rear ends, do a lot of stuff like this. Get a kit that's gonna have a bunch of these different tapered cones on here. You just pick the one that fits your bearing race, fits on there just like that. And then you can just drive it all in like that. So let me put a little bit of grease on the back side of this. Bearing race here, thin layer. We're not packing a wheel bearing or nothing. Race, start it up in there and just drive it home. When you feel that positive stop, you know you're home. Now, next step, put our race driver up. I like to put just a little bit of like trans gel or something on my bearing when I'm first initially installing them. Just a little, I'm not sure how the light is on that, but I just put a little light, very light coat of, can't even show up on camera, just a very light coat of grease. You can kind of see it tacking on my fingers. So yeah, just a light coat of grease on there. And The oil slinger I told you not to forget earlier. We'll load our bearing with got our bearing in there, don't jump out there. The slinger deal, and then your pinion seal. With nothing in there, without the pinion protruding, you can just kind of usually tap this seal around the perimeter, just like so. Now we're going to put a little trans gel or whatever you prefer, Vaseline, whatever, on this larger bearing. Smear some grease around on it, not a ton, just a light film so it's got a little tack to it. And then we will stuff this up in there, put our flange on. Got a crush sleeve already on here. Put our flange on, tighten the nut down. Now that your pinion's poked through, you can get this started in the splines and start your nut. Okay, I think I like that. Nice bit of rolling, nice rolling resistance. Like, you don't want to let it go and it go wing. That's not enough, because your bearings are going to initially wear in. You want it to set up a little on the tight side, my opinion, my personal experience, because as soon as this thing gets going, these bearings are going to wear in a little bit, and then you're going to have too much slop. I'll check the actual spec on it. Hang your torque wrench over here and let it, you hang your torque wrench over here. Let me get a ratchet. To properly measure this, you're going to set your torque wrench on the pinion nut, and then you just essentially let it fall and see how much rolling resistance you have. You say, I have built a million of these. This is how I do it. Do it by feel every time. I know how it's supposed to feel. It's not rocket science, guys. It is not like, this thing's not about to go 250 miles an hour. It's not. We just want it to be quiet, smooth, no clunking back and forth. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. Got our bearings in there, nice press against the race. So let's move on to assembling the carrier. Got my bearings put on the carrier. We're now ready to slide our ring gear up here. Just want to share something with you real quick. Putting your bearing races on, you'll use your bearing race driver or your carrier bearings on. Take that off so you can understand what I'm saying. Find one that fits the inner diameter. You don't want to drive out here just on its own. But I don't know if you can see on camera. Let me see. Yeah, can you see this has just a little bit of a lip here? So the bearing, if you're driving it with something like this, it's going to stop. Now we have an air gap between here. So you're going to need to use something like a socket, or an old bearing race works perfect. You can put it right on top of it and drive it on down the rest of the way so it seats all the way down here. Otherwise, it's going to be flush up here and you're going to have a gap, and your side shims are not going to fit, and all your measurements are going to be way off. So pro tip, make sure these carrier bearings are all the way down, because if you're using something flat, this lip, see how that's up, will catch it. So drive it down as far as you can, then take a socket or something, drive it down the rest of the way. Just wanted to share that with you, because you'll be super mad and won't know why your carrier's too thick and won't go in and all this and that when you just didn't drive your bearing down far enough. So a little bit of Loctite on the bolts. This ring gear actually fits this carrier quite well. Usually they're really tight and you have to work them to get them on there and to pull the bolts up, but this one is actually pretty decent. Get some bolts started in this thing here. So we're just going to work on pulling this up in a big star pattern. You don't want to pull the threads out of the ring gear trying to pull it all up at once. So just kind of work it side to side. All right, I'll look up the torque specs, put this thing in the vise, torque it all up. I think it's probably like 90 if I'm remembering right. I'm not sure but yeah, so run around this with a torque wrench, put both of our bearing races back on there, and put this thing in there. Ready to install our carrier back in the housing. So these side shims I told you earlier, don't swap them side to side just yet. Make sure you know where they go. I'm going to wipe these off. This thing has had a bearing failure in the past at some point and spun the shim. I can tell because it's got a little chamfer of a wear pattern where this thing has maybe spun in the housing. Not sure. See how they go back in there. I may not like these. I've got some more. It actually comes with a shim kit, so. Okay, so I'm gonna grab the carrier. I'll set it up here. We'll put our shims on each side, make sure everything's nice and wiped out. No debris nowhere. Make sure our torques are gonna caps are gonna torque up good. Yeah, that. I grab it, stack them all up, shims and everything on there. This thing didn't have a ton of bearing tolerance before, so with any luck, a bunch of clearance. It was pretty snug before, but looks like we got too much right now already. There we go. Now we'll just kind of tap our shim all the way. There we go. Sometimes you got to take a long screwdriver, something, knock them all the way in there. Make sure these side shims are bottomed out in the housing. Hear that tone change when it bottoms out? Make sure of that. So now I'm going to put my two caps back on here. Put this cap back on there. And I'm just going to snug them down. Then I'm going to get a dial indicator and we'll check our backlash, which is generally your most important measurement, in my opinion, because that's where you'll cut down on that's where you'll run into noise and stuff like that. As if you have too much or too little backlash, you'll get gear whine, and nobody wants to hear that crap. The whole time riding down the road, gears screaming. Yeah, we're not into that. So we'll snug these caps. Couple ugga-duggas, so we know we're in the ballpark. And let's just see what we got here. That's pretty good. Seems like a lot. So what your backlash is I don't know if you can see me. I'm holding the pinion and I'm rocking this gear back and forth. Can you hear that? This is kind of over exaggerated, but this is basically your slop between the gears. Let's get a dial indicator on it and see what we actually got. Okay, so I got our dial indicator up and you can see the needle is on 0. I know it's upside down, but now that's 20, 19, 20. That is way, way too much backlash. So now we're gonna have to pop the carrier back out and measure our shims and see what we've got. With any luck, we can swap them side to side and move the whole carrier over. But we basically need to cut that in half. We're looking for anywhere around 10, like 8 to 12 is really the range you want to be in. So that is not going to work. So let's get our carrier back out. Measuring my shims up here. Here is my, let me get so you can show you guys on the camera. Got my calipers here. 80, I don't know if you can see it good. 84, 85. That's the right side shim. With any luck, this one's thinner. And looks like, oh yeah, 20, that's probably gonna get us exactly where we need. So my plan, so now this is our left side shim. So you see the left side one is 65. This one goes on this side. Now back to this one, we'll remeasure it and it is 85. This one goes over here. So we need to move our ring gear that way. So what I'm going to do, I take this thick one and this thin one and I swap them. Now our thickness is over here. It's going to move everything that way. So let's try that. Maybe we can get lucky enough, and that's all we got to do. Swap some shim side to side. A lot of times that's the case. Be careful if you have to tap these things in, these side shims, because your tolerance is tight. If you go to smacking on them like crazy, these shims will crack and they will break. And that ain't no good, because then you're taking it back out, trying to find another one. Caps back on. Like I said, all we did is swap our side shims side to side, trying to make up a little bit of tolerance in the backlash. That's best case scenario is when you can just swap your shims side to side. Already, I can tell you, that's probably gonna be what we're looking for. Get our indicator set back up on our ring gear here. And that is about what we're looking for right there. You can see the indicator's on about, that's a little tight. It's actually like dead because that's just past 0, 7. That's right. That's a little past 0. And we're going. So yeah, we got about, on the bottom of the scale, we're about 8 thousandths. That's what I'm seeing, right at 8 thousandths. I think we're dialed. So now we got our carrier all set up in there. We're gonna move on to doing our axle bearings and seals. And let me show you the tool I use for that. So this is an axle bearing remover. See the head of this swivels and goes flat. That is so you can slide the tool inside there and then it will, well, with any luck, it will, not demonstrating this very good, it will expand out. Golly. Cooperate for my video, come on. Yeah, there we go. So now it's expanded out in there and it's going, we're gonna slide hammer it and pop it out of there. So, we'll thread our little slide hammer deal on. See if I can get it to come back out. Probably not. There we go. Thread this onto our slide hammer like so. And this is just your standard slide hammer deal. And we're gonna move you back a little so you get the full effect. But yeah, so essentially, run that in there, get it hooked. This is made to run down in there and keep everything tight, but you're gonna get your slide hammer, and there's your bearing and seal all in one shot. So like I said, I was gonna try to knock out a couple of the front end items that he's got on here that he wants me to do. He's got some ball joints, outer tie rods, sway bar links. The sway bar links have been pretty recently replaced, so those are good. And he actually took it upon himself to replace this upper arm, but OMG, check out the freaking play in this lower ball joint. I don't know, is it worn out? Is that too much play? Is that excessive? I'm not sure. Is that out of spec? I'd say so. So I'm waiting on some axle bearings. I'm gonna probably knock this out for him. So we got this suspension apart. I'm waiting on a couple axle seals. Like I said, I already got the lower ball joint knocked out. I actually, while I was coming apart, went ahead and replaced his outer tie rod in because he had one here. Just thought I'd show you the process of getting the ball joint out. Usually you can just take a hammer, like a nice ball peen, use a ball peen side, knock it straight through there, which is exactly what I did with this. Going together, you're gonna need some sort of a ball joint press. Super simple. Just find a set of cups that fit over the ball joint, a receiver cup in the top. Now our ball joint is now pressed in there, ready to accept the snap ring and reassemble front suspension. Back on the rear, finally got our axle bearings here from O'Reilly's, and we're about to just drive them in there. That one's being funky. Got her in a little crooked. Hold on, guys, hold on. It's a little snug in there, so I'm just gonna use an old bearing, make up the slack. Oh boy, we don't want two bearings in there. Idiot. Okay, it's good, it's good. Like, don't drive them both in there, then you'll be really pissed off. There she goes. You hear that positive stop? Then you know you're home. Let's grab a seal. One thing I failed to mention is that you got to transfer this ABS tone ring from the old carrier to the new one. It just, you knock it off this way. It's got like a little tang and a slot it fits in. And you knock it off that way, knock it back on that way, so you don't have an ABS light. Failed to mention that. I actually forgot to do it. I had to pop the carrier right back out and transfer it really quick. Okay, finally, after 3 attempts, got the correct axle seals for this thing. So, good Lord. Slide our axles in here. Something ain't driving. Not good. I think we got the wrong carrier. I'm not sure what was going on with this axle. Pulled it out and there's a little bit of traction on the end of it. I had to kind of lightly just tap it in there, but it's in there. C-clips are in. Let's put our center pin in, and then we can put some silicone on the diff. So yeah, I got my pin in. I was fighting with it a little bit. The hole in here was not quite jiving, but yeah, we got it. Tighten our little small bolt up here and we're in business. Got that in, getting our rear cover on now. Rear cover, stick some fluid in it, put the wheels on it, take it down the road. Wipe off a lot of this excess so it doesn't look like crap. Okay, ready for some fluid. Got our little 8.8 diff build project all buttoned up, cleaned up, everything in there, good to go, topped off with fluid, tires back on it, friction modifier in, all that good stuff. Now we will, let's go down the road, see how she does. Let's take her down the road, make sure it's good and quiet, everything's doing like it's supposed to. No whining, no clunking. Nice and smooth so far. Nice and quiet, just like we like them. Let off, check our D-cell whine. Silent. That's what we're looking for. Nice and quiet. Now I know we are not going 70, 80 up the highway, but it's a nice cruising speed. I can check D-cell, tip in, all that stuff, make sure it's no kind of noise. And I think we're dialed. Sounding good. All right, got her down the road on our test drive. It's dead silent, as I suspected it would be. Feels good, feels a little more peppy. He's got a little more gear now, went from 308 to 373. So he should tell a noticeable difference in acceleration on this thing, which was his biggest complaint, is it was just so sluggish, so just sluggish. Yeah, lackluster. So he's got a little programmer for it. He's got that on there. I can already tell the shift points are firmed up a little bit. So speedometer is definitely off. He's gonna have to fix that with it. I'm not sure if we can fix that with the programmer or if we have to put actual gear, speedo gear in the transmission side. I'll look back under it and look into that. But either way, other than that, he's ready to freaking rock. So he's we're gonna get it back to the shop and send y'all off from there. Okay, well maybe you liked my little differential install, rebuild, upgrade video, whatever you have it. I tried to give you guys some tips and follow along in there in case you're doing it at home yourself. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Because I know it's a super popular mod, locker, gear, Mustangs, F-150s, everybody wants a gear, everybody wants posi. So, hope you enjoyed it, hope you picked something up from it. I know Robbie's gonna be happy, this thing's got a little more pep now, spins both tires, got a little more gear. So, appreciate you guys sticking around. Another working video, hanging out in the shop with me, just chilling. Don't forget, like, subscribe, super duper subscribe. Like, make sure you subscribe and drop a couple comments. But for now, stick around for the next one. Most importantly, stay rad.